In this video, we are turning this raw DJI D-Log drone clip into a high-end and cinematic final image. No LUTs, no complicated node trees, just a clean and simple workflow, a proper color correction and a few finishing touches to make this shot look absolutely perfect. There's a lot you will learn today, so we won't waste time here. We will start with the right color space transform, then we move on to color correction, where we focus on exposure, white balance and contrast, and in the end we finish it off with some color grading and masking techniques. But before we move to the color page, here's a quick overview of my timeline and project settings. We will skip the details and focus ourselves on the color correction and color grading part. If you want an in-depth video on how to set up a project completely from scratch, I leave a link to another video in the description. Just like building a house, a good color grade starts with a solid foundation. And it doesn't matter which video you edit, if your color correction is wrong, no LUT or creative look will save the image. Of course we could be lazy and simply throw on a DJI conversion LUT and call it a day. But that limits us to all the colors we have and we would leave a lot of potential of this clip behind. Instead, we want to work in the DaVinci wide gamut working space, which gives us far more control and image quality. Enough theory, let's put it into practice. First, we add a serial node. Since I'm on a MacBook, for me it's option S, but what you can also do is do a right click, add node, add serial. And here's the command if it's different for you. With the first node selected, we move to the Effects tab, search for the color space transform and apply it onto our first node. For the input color space, we choose Rec 709. For the input gamma, we also choose Rec 709. And if you click here, press the R key, you can actually navigate faster. Since we want to transform it into the DaVinci wide gamut working space, we choose DaVinci wide gamut, and for the output gamma, DaVinci intermediate. This is our first input node. If you don't know which input color space you're working with, there's a simple trick for that. Just go to the media pool, search for your drone clip, and if you now do a right click here on this bar, you can actually select the input color space. And here it will show you the correct one for your source file. This works for every other camera or device, so if you're unsure about the input color space, always double check this step before you move on and insert it into your first node. Now what you can do is to copy this, paste it onto the second node, and now you press swap. The only thing that's left here to change is the output gamma. I choose gamma 2.2. This setting is better if you export a video for phones, tablet or laptops. Gamma 2.4 would be a better option if you export for TV or larger screens, but since most of us are watching the videos on an iPhone or a tablet or a laptop, we choose gamma 2.2. Okay, so with that out of the way, the first step is a solid color correction. And this step is the key. If you get a color correction right, everything else that follows afterwards will fall into place perfectly and your color grade will always look beautiful. Vice versa, if you get this foundational step wrong, you will implement more and more mistakes further down your node chain. So it's always the same process, first the color correction and then the color grade or look development. So between the two CST nodes we add 3 serial nodes, again with option S on a Mac, or simply by adding a node, add serial, just like before. With a right click I can clean up the node graph. And here the first one is labeled HDR exposure. The second one is labeled linear balance. And the third one is our contrast. Let's actually label the first and the last node too. So the first is DaVinci wide gamut. The last one is Rec 709. Of course, we always want to stay organized. So these 3 nodes will do 90% of the final image. So pay close attention, this is super important. I always start with the contrast. In basic terms, contrast shows the difference between our highlights and our shadows. A cool trick that I always use is to set the saturation down to 0 in the Primaries tab. This helps us a lot since we don't face any color distraction when we work with our blacks and whites. Now we open up the Curves tab and create 2 keyframes on the white line. One for the highlights, one for the shadows. Here we lift the highlights slightly. And we also lower the shadows just a bit. The goal here is a slight S shape. You can also open up the 3 dots, click on editable splines, and now you can smooth out the curves for better roll-offs. If you want, you can also add a touch of contrast in the Primaries tab itself. Now we make a double click on the saturation to reset it, and here is a quick before and after. Look how rich our shot became just by playing around with the contrast. With this one single node, this image already looks richer and a lot better. Now we will move on to our linear balance node, which is our white balance node. Here we do a right click and then we choose the linear option inside the Gamma tab. This gives us a natural response when we play around with the white balance. The Lumix is set to 0 and now we will only make use of the gain wheel in the Primaries tab. This one right here. I would completely avoid the tint and temperature slider, since they affect the entire image too aggressively. Since I already shot this clip with the right white balance of 5600 Kelvin, I just have to make a few small adjustments. I want my image to appear a little bit warmer, so I simply drag my slider a little bit towards the orange side. Subtle changes are enough here, small moves are all we need. So here is another before and after. And this is it for the linear balance. If this video already helped you, I would really appreciate a like or a comment, so that other people can also benefit from this workflow. Thank you. Now we move on to the first node, the HDR exposure. Most people adjust exposure using the offset wheel, and that's a mistake. At a certain point, the offset setting crushes the highlights and shadows. Instead, we want to use the HDR global exposure in the HDR grade section. Trust me, your image will look way better if you use this one. On the bottom right, open up your Waveforms tab and try to stay between 0 and 100 to avoid clipping or crushed blacks. For me, I always push it to around 80 or 90%. Now I head back to the Primaries tab and play around and fine-tune this clip with the shadows and highlights. And this is it. Here's another before and after. And now here's a before and after with all of these nodes deactivated. And that's the power of getting the foundation right. Consider the fact that we only used 3 nodes and we didn't even make use of a LUT at all. So congratulations, you now understood and nailed the color correction. But that's only the start. Now we can take it even further. Let's drag these 3 to the top. Now we create another serial node. And this one is called Curves. This one is used to enhance or decrease specific colors in the shot. In this case, I'm working with some blue tones of the water, green tones of the trees, and yeah, some orange and brown tones of the rocks. So let's have a look on how we can enhance them. For that, we select the second tab at the top, which is called the Hue versus Saturation. Here, we can create keyframes by simply clicking on the parts of the image we want to work with. So let's say I want to enhance the blue tone of the water. I simply click on some parts of the image and the chart will show me exactly which color I'm working with. Now I can simply drag these keyframes up to add saturation to the blue tone and the green tone of the water. And the same thing can be done for any other color. In this example, for the green and red tones. Please consider that this is all about refinement, not overgrading. So always keep it simple, don't go too heavy, and always keep it natural and realistic. Here's another before and after. Full screen. So you can actually see we enhanced the blue tones of the water. And the orange and green tones also pop a little bit more. So I think this looks pretty beautiful. Another powerful technique that you can always apply is to make use of masks. By using masks, you can highlight specific points in a shot and you can also adjust the exposure or brightness of different areas. Here I will keep it simple just to show you what's possible. So let's create one node. We call it mask 1. And with this mask, I actually want to draw the attention more towards the center. And we will do this by creating a little bit of an vignette effect. So yeah, the goal here is to make the edges around the center a little bit darker, so that you really focus on the center of the image. I will show you how I do it. So like I said, it's pretty simple. We simply go to the mask section. Now we add a circular mask shape. And if you now drag this blue line to the sides, you will create a circular mask shape. The gray part of the mask tells you that this section is not affected by the mask. And since we want this vignette effect happen on the edges or the outside of this mask, we simply press on this invert mask button. Now it will actually affect only the outside of our selected area. Now we decrease the exposure in the HDR global wheel a little bit to create this vignette effect. Okay, a quick before and after. Always try to avoid harsh transitions here. Drag out this yellow point to smooth out the mask. If you wouldn't smooth it out, this is how it would look like. You will instantly see the circular mask shape, especially if you go harder on the exposure. So yeah. Always feather it out a little bit. The effect shouldn't be too obvious. The only goal here is to draw the attention a little bit more towards the center. Okay, so let's create another node, and this one is called Details. So with this node, I want to add a little bit of sharpness to the center of the frame. Again, I could create a circular mask shape and do the same thing vice versa, but what I can also do is to copy this, paste it onto the second node, and now I press invert again, so now it will affect the inside of the image. Obviously, we have to reset the exposure to 0 again here. So a quick double click on the HDR exposure to set it to 0, and now let's add some mid and detail from the primaries to this mask. And this is it. Cool, right? Here's another before and after with all nodes bypassed. So this is it for today. I really hope you got some value out of this video. And if you made it till here, if you watched this video till the end, a big thank you. I really appreciate it. And if you now would leave a like or a comment, this would really mean a lot to me. With that said, thanks for watching.